The more I play Magic, the more I notice a tendency I have to shy away from including green in my decks. This is highly subjective and there could be a million reasons causing it, but one that sticks out very clearly to me is the struggle to remove a creature in green. White, black, and even blue now are where the majority of flexible and efficient creature removal lie, leaving those of us who are trying to live out our stompy Gruul fantasies with somewhat limited options when it comes to tackling threats on sticks. I voiced this issue in a conversation I was having with a friend a while back, and in response, he helpfully suggested that I try out some fight cards. My initial impression was, wow, removal for a creature. In green. For just 1 mana? What's the catch? In theory, it sounded like a huge bargain. Now, years later, and with many, many more games under my belt, I feel much more qualified to talk about why I feel that fight cards are lackluster in practice. First, some context. The rules for the word fight in Magic the Gathering are, when 2 creatures fight, each deals damage equal to its power to the other. Okay, let's get the obvious issue out of the way first. Fight spells require setup, whereas other removal spells do not. The floor, or worst case scenario, for cards like Swords to Plowshares is that they'll simply not see anything appetizing enough on board to utilize themselves on. With fight spells, you're signing up for many moments in a game of Magic where you simply do not fulfill the base requirement of having a winning creature. Taking bad opening hands, failing to curve into something big, and getting bad top decks now not only put you behind on your own game plan, but also turn off your removal as well. The random element of Magic that we call variance dictates that, outside of your commander, you're never guaranteed to get your game pieces in an order that's profitable to you. But okay, this is a little bit hyperbolic. We're in green, right? So we probably have a decent enough creature density in our deck to assume that we have one on board fairly early. And it's a Vexing Shusher, or a Llanowar Elves, or insert any other small statted value creature here. Even if we manage a creature on board early, they still have to have the numbers which allow them to not only fight, but live through the fight. A lot of early development in stompy green strategies isn't curving big creature into big creature, it's setting up small supporting pieces that will usher in a big boy safely later. Knowing this, now we realize our removal isn't just luck-based due to variance, it's also probably going to be strictly offline entirely until we move into the mid-game. This is especially problematic due to the fact that removal usually helps you even the playing field against an opponent that had an early lead. A turn 1 Birds of Paradise, an Esper Sentinel, early commanders that got ramped out. These are the things that you're grateful to have good, cheap removal in your deck for, in order to set back an opponent quickly and efficiently. Fight spells struggle to get online early enough to stop a fortunate opponent before they've started generating advantage out of their lucky opening hand. Because of these factors, your fight spells will often spend a startling amount of time in your hand, but that's not where the issues end. So earlier, when I said that the going rate for a fight spell was 1 mana, I was being economical with the truth. Sorcery speed fight spells are usually 1 mana, while instant speed fight spells are usually 2 mana instead. This becomes a problem when you find out about the unique complications that fight spells have at sorcery speed. Okay, time for an example. Your setup is out of the way. Let's say you've got some big beat stick on board. How about Rurik Thar? There we go. Ignoring the hilarity that your friendly neighborhood bushwhack will burn you for 6 in the face of Rurik, you can now safely crush anything 5/5 or smaller. For example's sake, how about a 3/3? As soon as you move to combat, your attacks are suddenly cramped by that damage Rurik Thar took in the fight. That 3 damage sticks around until the cleanup step, meaning anyone with a 3 power creature can probably make a pretty favorable trade block with you. On the other hand, let's say you do combat first, get chump blocked by a 3/3, and then decide to bushwhack on your second main. Now the fight spell is the one cramped by the lingering damage, leaving Rurik only able to throw down with 2/2s or smaller safely, as fighting something with 3 power or greater would kill him. Sure, there's a small chance your opponent doesn't block, but now you're gambling the capabilities of your removal on decisions your opponents get to make. Not great. Meanwhile, Swords to Plowshares is over here at instant speed, happily lasering down anything that even looks like a problem without a second thought. Okay, that's sorceries though. What about instants? Outside of Tail Swipe, every conditionless fight spell in the game at instant speed costs 2 mana or more. This is a bit outside of the scope of the conversation, but for every additional mana a removal spell costs, you'd really like it to become more flexible, more efficient, or online more often. These 2 mana instant fights lack the damage sticking around issue that sorceries have, outside of using creatures as blockers, but now you're not competing with Swords to Plowshares and Pongify. You're competing with Black's myriad of 2 mana kill spells, with effects that give you more efficiency sometimes, like Malicious Affliction. Blue's got Resculpt, which exiles instead of destroys and hits artifacts as well as creatures. Braid hits artifacts and creatures. Assassin's Trophy hits any permanent, and Get Lost hits creatures and enchantments. Sure, the fight spells can function with a certain setup, but their competitors don't need the setup, and usually hit more card types than just creatures for the exact same mana cost. Not to mention that all of this is contingent on the fact that you actually get to fight the problem creature in the first place, which isn't a given. Stats aren't the only determining factor for what limits the things you can fight. Again, as a reminder, the text for the word fight is when two creatures fight, each deals damage equal to its power to the other. The presence of the word damage here means that indestructible is a non-starter for fightable targets. Additionally, all the fight effects currently in the game require you to, well, target, meaning hexproof stops them too, and so does Shroud. But okay, most removal has issues with these, so the better question is, what is more problematic for fight spells than other removal? Well, to that I'd say protection for one. Protection from a color gives a creature a lot of things, but two of them are unable to be targeted and unable to be damaged by effects of that color. Fighting involves a creature and a fight spell most of the time, so if the opposing creature that you want to fight has protection from a color, you're out of luck if either your creature or your spell is that color. Let's say that your fight spell is green and you've got a huge white creature. In this case, protection from green or white will make your fight spell do nothing. This is because protection would stop your creature from dealing the damage and your spell from targeting it in the first place. This issue is compounded by the popularity of Sword of Feast and Famine, since fight effects, and creatures big enough to get into the ring, are both overwhelmingly green. That's not the only unique problem here though. Deathtouch is another issue. Usually a timely Infernal Grasp is an elegant way to take care of pesky Deathtouchers without sacrificing one of your big bad creatures in a trade to block it. Fights, unfortunately, don't offer the same advantages. You'll be down a removal spell and a creature whenever you need to take care of a threat that just so happens to have this unfortunate keyword, because again, it's the creatures dealing the damage. It's also not terribly uncommon to find pingers or other damage dealers on the board, like Niv Mizzet the Lizzy Wizzy or the aforementioned Abrade. So fighting can leave your creatures weakened enough for a timely snipe that otherwise wouldn't have affected them because of their stats. But this isn't to say that fight spells have nothing going for them. Deathtouch, while being a roadblock to fighting on the opposite side of the board, is actually one of the best things you can fight with on your side. Throwing a 1/1 Deathtoucher into an 11/11 behemoth will kill the 11/11 for the same reason a Deathtoucher on the opposite side would kill yours. Fighting also triggers your Enrage abilities, letting you get a little extra value alongside your removal. Sometimes the fact that your creatures can lose a fight is also a boon, making fight spells into impromptu sacrifice outlets. For example, Kura the Boundless Sky is a Deathtoucher with a dies trigger. He's basically begging you to throw him into something huge. Shout out to fellow Commander YouTuber 33elk for pointing out this interaction to me. Another thing to consider is that Wizards of the Coast seems to be aware of the issues with fighting. We've received a 1-mana instant speed fight in Tailswipe, and many fight effects on more flexible cards, particularly modal ones. Archdruid's Charm not only gives your dude a quick steroid hit before the fight, but can also flex as ramp or an exile clause for Theros Gods and One Rings. Bushwhack can help you get out of Mana Screw. Bridgeworks Battle is an untapped land on the back, if you bolt yourself, giving it practically zero opportunity cost when you're deck building. These are all pretty great cards, since they're never entirely offline even when their fight mode is. Combining these criticisms, I think it's fair to say fights have their issues, and for the time being, I won't be touching many of them. But you know what? The future's looking bright. Archdruid's Charm is one of my favorite spells right now, and if we were to get a couple more cards like this, who knows? Maybe the good could start to outweigh the bad. But hey, maybe you think differently. I know criticizing the capabilities of a whole mechanic like this can be divisive, and that's what the comments are for. I'll be down there hoping to learn a thing or two from you guys about fights that I missed. For now though, remember to keep your hands up, elbows in, and God, if you're gonna fight with Rurikthar on the battlefield, just use Ulvenwald Tracker since he's a creature. It's 6 life, it's a whopping 6 life. It's like getting hit by your own